Math 1332, Chapter 7, Consumer Mathematics, Section 2, Personal Budgeting, Video 1, Income and Expenses. Of all the things you're going to learn in this class or see in this class, this one section might be the most useful in the long term, because chances are at some time between now and the end of your life, you will have a source of income, probably in the form of a job, and you will have bills to pay. A lot of what I'm going to explain in this section, you may already know. Some people call it common sense, but some people, especially college students, may not have been in this situation yet. And although you could probably figure it out on your own later, it's always a good idea to have, know what to expect in the future when it comes to income, expenses, and budgeting. We're going to talk about two types of incomes, or sort of three types of incomes, but really two in this section. The first is called gross income. Gross income is the amount you earn before any deductions are taken from your paycheck. Common deductions include taxes, Social Security, Medicare, retirement, health coverage. Some of the deductions are mandatory. Some are optional. You don't have to contribute to a retirement fund. I would recommend it. You may not have the option of purchasing health coverage, or it may just be provided for you, or you could buy extra health coverage. But rarely does anybody work at a job where there aren't some deductions. It is possible to work a job without deductions, especially if it's paid in cash. But technically speaking, whenever you earn money, there are taxes that are owed, and it's easier to pay them up front than wait at the end of the year. In fact, if taxes were not deducted from your paycheck, but every February you got a bill from the IRS saying, all right, here's how much in taxes you owe, there would be a revolution. Don't believe me? Look at your paycheck. See how much is taken out in taxes. Multiply it times however many paychecks you get each year. And then ask yourself, if the government said, hey, you owe me a check for this amount right now, you'd panic. Taxes are deducted before you get paid because it's easier to pay small amounts over multiple periods. And as much as I hate to say it, you don't miss what you aren't actually paid. Net income is the amount of income you actually get paid once deductions are taken from your gross income. In other words, the actual amount of your paycheck. When you're budgeting, you always use net income in your calculations, because if you use the gross income, you're assuming that you have money to spend that you don't, because that money is already spent on those deductions. And there's also a type of income called supplemental income. These are additional sources of income besides your primary source of income. So it's things like part-time jobs, side gigs like Uber or DoorDash, alimony payments, child support payments. If you donate plasma, that's considered supplemental income. If you sell things on Mercari on the side, that's considered supplemental income. But unless supplemental income produces a steady, reliable income flow, and I should also say predictable, I know exactly how much this supplemental income will pay each month, you should be careful including it when budgeting. Now let's talk about types of expenses. And there's a couple of different categorizations here, a couple of different binary categorizations. First is necessary versus luxury. Necessary expenses are, well, necessary. Rent and mortgage, you need a place to live. Utility bills, that place that you live probably needs utilities. Car payments, if you have one, because you probably need your car to go to the job to pay for the car. Vicious cycle. Food, fairly necessary. Insurance, auto insurance if you have a car. Homeowner's insurance if you're currently paying a mortgage. Health insurance. Well, some people would argue that that's a luxury, not a necessity. I would say it's a necessity, but it is possible to survive without having health insurance. Luxury expenses are things that you want but don't need. Entertainment, movies, much as I hate to say it, books that you read for pleasure, shows, concerts, things like that. Alcohol. Alcohol is not a necessity. Even if you are an alcoholic, it is not a necessity. Restaurants, and I include restaurants because shopping for groceries and eating at home is usually cheaper than going to restaurants. Restaurants are a luxury because you're not acquiring the food, you're not preparing the food, you're not cleaning the dishes, you're just eating the food. Pretty much anything not necessary for day-to-day living is considered luxury expenses. Another categorization of expenses is fixed versus variable. Fixed expenses are expenses whose value remain the same each payment period. For example, rent. Now you could argue, yeah, every year it goes up, you're right, but then for 12 months in a row it stays the same. Car payment is usually a fixed payment. Insurance payments are usually fixed, although they may change every 6 months. Subscription services like Netflix or Amazon. Cell phone bills might be a fixed expense if you have an unlimited, or if your plan doesn't charge you based on how much data that you use. Variable expenses are expenses whose values change each payment period. These are usually utilities: electric bill, water bill, gas bill, maybe your cell phone bill. These aren't the only fixed and variable expenses, but they're just examples of them. Another thing to consider is the frequencies for expenses, namely how often are you billed for them. There's a lot of different payment frequencies. You may have an expense that you pay daily. If you're the type of person that goes to Starbucks every morning, that's a daily expense. Weekly expenses. You may be renting a car or leasing a car and you have weekly payments. Bi-weekly expenses every 2 weeks. Monthly expenses, this is a very common one. Rent, car payment, utility bills, etc. Those are usually monthly. Bi-monthly, every 2 months. There are some things that you can pay bi-monthly. Quarterly, 4 times a year, or every 3 months. Some people pay their auto insurance quarterly. Some people pay their property taxes quarterly. Just remember, quarterly means, quarter means 1/4 of a year, so about every 3 months. Semi-annually is twice per year. Some people pay their auto insurance semi-annually. And annually, 1 time per year, such as income taxes or possibly property taxes. Unfortunately, biweekly and bi-monthly are ambiguous in their meanings. I actually looked this up before starting this video. From a mathematical perspective, they have a specific meaning. But outside of mathematics, bi-weekly means both twice per week and once every 2 weeks. Same thing with bi-monthly and even biannually. But the prefix bi means 2. And when measuring time frames can mean twice per time frame, so like 2 times per week, or once every 2 time frames, so once every 2 weeks. But mathematically speaking, half time frames should be prefixed with semi, like in semicircle, half a circle. So from a mathematical perspective, semi-weekly means once every half week, which means twice per week. Bi-weekly means once every 2 weeks. But if you ever see the prefix bi or semi, get clarification. When you say biannually, do you mean 2 times a year or once every 2 years? And whichever one you mean, just say that. All right, and the last thing in this video is some time equivalencies, which we're going to need to convert between monthly, daily, and yearly. Those are the usual ones we convert between. In general, we need to know the relationship between various time periods. There are only 3 that are consistent. 1 week is equal to 7 days. Always has been, probably always will be. 1 year is equal to 12 months. Has been for the longest of time. If you go over the history of how the months were named, June, July, and August used to not be months. It used to go January, February, March, April, May, June, September, October, November, December. So if you're wondering why the prefixes for the last 4 months mean 7, 8, 9, and 10, because they used to be the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th months. So where does June, July, and August come from? I forget where June comes from, but I know July and August has something to do with Julius Augustus Caesar. But you should use the following equivalencies. 1 week equals 7 days, 1 year equals 12 months, and 1 year equals 365 days. We disregard leap years, which have 366 days, but if you want to be nitpicky, you can use 365 0.25, 1/4 of a day, by taking that extra day every 4 years and splitting it over 4 years. But don't do that. Use 365. These should be used whenever possible when converting between time periods. The following relationships are estimates at best. 1 month equals 30 days. Not all of them, but some of them. 1 month equals 4 weeks. Not all of them. In fact, most of them are 4 weeks and some change. The only one that's ever exactly 4 weeks is February, when it's not a leap year. And 1 year is equal to 52 weeks, which is an approximation because 52 weeks is actually 364 days. And of course, a year is 365 days. I would avoid the last three if you can, because we can get everything we want with the first 3 time equivalencies. All right, so how do we put all this together? Well, check out the next video and you'll see.